Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Conservative American Perspective. That's right, folks. I'm your guest host for the day. My name is Dr. Shake, and we're going to be talking about the exit polls, folks, the anatomy of the 22 midterms. What did Florida show us? And in the next few minutes, what I'm going to do is bring you the CNN exit polls that were taken. Specifically, were taken on the governor races, Senate races, the state house races, the House of Representative races. They put it all together. They went to the various states. They polled their questions. I think you're going to be quite surprised and shocked by some of the answers that you saw that occurred in Florida, and then why that didn't translate to some of the other areas where we should have won huge as conservatives, within the Republican Party. So let me go ahead and bring up that CNN exit polls. We're going to discuss that in the next few minutes. So if you haven't already done so, we'd really appreciate it if you go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We just started this channel a few weeks ago. We certainly could use the help. And hit that notification bell so you know when we put out new content. We do it. We're going to be doing it each and every single day. Various things, in terms of just politics, culture, Hollywood, academia, you name it. We're going to talk to you about it and give you the conservative American perspective. So let's go those polls right now. All right, so here, if you take a look, almost 3,900 people responded. The first thing we're talking about is the age. So in 18 to 29, take a look, Christ, by about, 12 points. He won the younger vote. But as you go across here, you see that DeSantis, pretty much, within the 30 to 44 range, 18% of that vote. He won it by 3. But look at what happened over here. Huge wins, folks, almost doubling basically in the 45 to 64. Same thing in the 65 and older. Huge DeSantis. Now, they went ahead and broke this down again, according to, they took the age instead of going 18, 29. They broke it down a little bit more. But as you can still see, in this group here, up to about the age of 40, you've got Christ. But above that, DeSantis wins huge among those over 40. And it just goes to show you once again that unfortunately, it seems that as you're younger and educated, gone to college, you seem to try to vote liberal and democratic. And then you find out that what you voted for, well, it might have been okay when you weren't paying that much in taxes or you were still in school or in college. But as soon as you start getting into those upper years where you start earning some income, looks like you made some mistakes and you decide to go right instead of go wrong and go left. Now, take a look at the marital status here. Again, same amount of respondents. Married people, 60% of those respondents that said that they were married, 62% went for DeSantis. And look at the married. It's a tie, folks. It's a tie. This is one reason why DeSantis won huge. Now, if you take a look at the condition of the nation's economy, well, if again, you 20% thought it was good, and if you thought it was good, 87% went for Christ. If you didn't think it was so good, 34%. Here's what I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense. If you think it's not so good, and that's 34%, like a third, 56% of you still went for Christ, even though it wasn't so good. 43% went for DeSantis, and if you thought it was poor, you overwhelmingly went DeSantis, 90%. Now, if you take a look, party ID, if you were a Democrat, 28%, you would expect this, 95% to go with Christ, 5% to go with DeSantis. Republican, 42% of party ID. 42%, folks, in Florida. 2%. Chris, 97%. If you're independents, DeSantis won the independents by 8 points. Again, they take a look at the ideology. If you were liberal, you would expect this, 90% to go with Christ, 10% to go with DeSantis. But if you felt you were moderate, now this would be moderate, probably I imagine moderate Democrats, moderate Republicans, 39%, said if you were within the moderate range, 53% went for Christ, 45% went for DeSantis. But if you were conservative, overwhelmingly, it goes to show you if you have conservative values, if you show America first values, if you show that the first thing is about America first, American citizens first, it's all about what's good for the country, what's good for the people, and you don't flip-flop, and you basically talk about life, liberty, freedom, government staying out of our way, conservative values, lower taxes, free trade and fair trade, immigration, the border, all of these things. If you talk about those, you're going to get the vote, folks. You're going to get the conservative vote. President Trump showed us how it's done. DeSantis is just basically doing exactly the same thing. Now, take a look at what happens if you look at race. If you were white, 64% of those responded who voted were white. 65% went for DeSantis. But if you were black, here's what happened, folks. 86% went for Christ. Latino, 21%. 58% went for DeSantis. That's nearly 60% Latino went for DeSantis. That was huge, folks. 60 to 40. Almost a 20-point shift, or 20 points more in the Latino vote. Now, take a look just by gender. Male, about half responded. You were male, you went for DeSantis by a considerable amount, almost talking almost 29 points. And over here, you're almost talking close to 18 points. Female. So DeSantis wins the male vote and the female vote. Now take a look. Urban, suburban, rural. If you're within the city, 46%, about half the respondents live within city parameters. DeSantis won that, folks. He won that by 13 points living in the city. This was a lot of Latino and the black vote, especially among men. Suburban vote, by almost 18 points he took it. And look at out in the rural areas, by 70%. Now this is what's surprising. 30% out in the rural areas still voted for Christ. That's not Trump-like, because Trump was up in the 90%, folks. So DeSantis still has a lot to do in terms of getting out that rural vote. Condition of the nation's economy. 22% thought that it was excellent to good. Out of those 22%, 85% went for Christ. But if you didn't think it was not good or poor, which was 77%, so 77% of this number, almost 4,000 people, thought that it was not good or poor, but yet 30% still voted for Christ. That just, to me, doesn't make any sense. But those are the numbers. Abortion should be, if you thought it was legal in all cases, 25% of those respondents thought it was legal in all cases. This, again, I don't understand. If you thought it's legal in all cases, how did you give 21% of your vote to DeSantis? That doesn't make sense to me. I could understand the 70. I would think this is much higher, much higher. But see, for here, it must not have been legal in all cases, but it wasn't the number one reason they voted. Those are probably why they came over to DeSantis, because it wasn't their number one reason for voting. If you thought it was legal in most cases, 31%, but 60% went for Christ. All right, 42% for DeSantis. But if you thought it was illegal, in most cases, DeSantis, 90%. And here, this is the other thing I don't understand. If you thought it was illegal in all cases, how did you give Chris 12%? It doesn't make any sense. 12%, how did you do that? It should be nearly 99 to 100%. If you thought it was illegal, you know where DeSantis stands. Chris is for up until the baby's born and even after. Abortion. If you thought it was legal, 67%. You would expect that. I think it should have been higher. But if you thought it was legal, and DeSantis really, stayed away from this, basically leaving it again up to the states after Roe v. Wade, again here, if you thought it should be illegal, 90% gave to DeSantis. I don't understand this. If you thought it was illegal, where are these 11% coming from? Unless they're illegal here it didn't say anything it didn't give you any, subheading, illegal but, no buts in this. It was just legal or illegal. We talked about the gender by marital status. DeSantis wins basically among unmarried women. He did pretty good. It was pretty much tied, but if you looked across the breadth of the areas where we should have won in red states, like Arizona, in Nevada, even in Pennsylvania, Ohio, other places, Michigan, Wisconsin, we really lost the unmarried, the single woman vote. We really lost that huge, folks. We did. Again, gender by race, DeSantis handily over white men, handily with white women. Now here, he did get 9% he got 20% of black men, which is really, really good because I think, Trump got 12% of the black vote. That was a combination. I don't recall what it was between men and women, but Trump won more men than women. The same thing here with DeSantis. Among Latinos, as we talked about, Latino women, 21 points, and other races doubling up. We talked about the age already. Education we could go through. College graduate, 41% that responded were college graduates. If you're college graduates, you went with DeSantis. And if you, didn't go to college, again, 60% went with DeSantis. So he's winning both the people that went to college and those that thought, they didn't want to go to college. If you look at education by race, white that went to college, he wins by 20 points almost. If you were white and you didn't go to college, you're looking at almost, 51 points. Here, college, if you're a voter of color and you have a degree, higher education degree, it's pretty much tied. And DeSantis loses here by 11 points, but still, that's pretty good, folks. That's not bad when you're winning this. You can afford to do this. Voters of no color, no degree. Again, same thing. We talk about race. He won 65% of white voters, voters of color. He's only down 7 points. Immigrants to USA, what do? Did they help the country? Pretty much 50-50. Help the country. If you thought they helped the country, 70% of you went with Christ, 30% went with DeSantis. If you thought they hurt the country, overwhelmingly, 91% went to DeSantis. Again, party by gender. Democratic men, 11%, 16% women, 23% men, and Republican, 20% Republican women. Republican women, 97% went for DeSantis, 97% went for DeSantis among Republican men. This is what you would expect, Trumpian-like numbers, and obviously you would expect the same thing for Chris to be in the 95% and above. Education by gender, we talked about that. Again, education, never attended college. If you never attended college, 67% voted Republican for DeSantis. Some college, he wins by 17 points. If you just got an associate's degree, he's winning by almost 19 points. Every category where you either went to college or you didn't go to college, some college or whatever, advanced degree, DeSantis, overwhelmingly double digits. If you're a first-time midterm election voter, 11% said they were. He picked up nearly 60% of first-time midterm election voters. And if you weren't, he still won you by 14 points over here. Cuban descent, 7% they were Cuban descent. He won it by 40 points, DeSantis, cleaned up on the Cuban vote, just like Trump did. And then if you take a look here, folks, same thing. If you weren't of Cuban descent, 58%. Puerto Rican descent, 6% said they did. He's winning by 13 points over here, 19 points if you weren't. Here's one, the 2020 presidential vote. 41% they voted for Biden. Of those, 93% went for Christ. 6% of those went for DeSantis. Change their minds. However, here's look at this. If 52% of those said they voted for Trump, 95% with DeSantis, about 5% changed their minds. Another candidate, not applicable, didn't have enough results inside here. If you thought of Biden, opinion of Biden, if you strongly approved, 16% Well, guess what? You voted for Chris. So this is another number. If you strongly approved of Biden as president, who are these 6% that are voting for DeSantis? On what issues? I'd like to know that. If you somewhat approved of Biden, okay, I can somewhat approve, about 10% go to DeSantis. If you disapproved, somewhat disapproved, 54% to DeSantis. Okay. But if you strongly disapproved, again, small smattering, but they still strongly disapproved. But about half that group strongly disapproved of Biden. Overwhelmingly, it went to DeSantis. Same thing in past year inflation. Oh, here's one. This was kind of strange too. If it's caused your family severe hardship, 25% respondents said it caused severe hardship. Guess what? You still voted for Chris. 75%, 74% went for DeSantis, but this number I don't understand at all. Moderate hardship, you still gave this, Chris 42%. And if you had no hardship whatsoever, you gave 61% to Chris, 38% to DeSantis. So, it's just, here's another one. Would you vote to support Biden? If it was to support Biden, you gave it all to Chris. If it was opposed Biden, you gave it all to DeSantis. If it wasn't a factor, what's that? I mean, what? You're talking, 7 points. If it wasn't a factor. If your vote was to support Trump, 18%. If you wanted to support Trump, you voted 99% for DeSantis. Where is this thing in terms of where they're saying, Trump has no pull, has no power. Nothing that he did was worth it. That, he lost the elections. The midterms are a disaster because of him. What are you talking about? Here's those. If you opposed Trump, if you opposed him, 20, nearly quarter of the electorate here, the respondents. Guess what? Even if they opposed Trump, they still gave 8% to DeSantis. You would expect if you oppose Trump, there should be 99 to 100% like over here, but it wasn't. They're still giving some props to Trump. And if you thought Trump wasn't a factor, then you overwhelmingly voted for DeSantis. Here's the one, feelings about Roe v. Wade. If you were enthusiastic about it being, you gave it to DeSantis. I don't know where these 2% were. If you were enthusiastic, I would expect it 99 to 100. If you were satisfied with it, you gave 90% to DeSantis. If you were dissatisfied, even if you were dissatisfied in Florida, now this is in Florida, if you're dissatisfied, DeSantis wins this one here. And then if you're angry about Roe v. Wade being turned, you still gave 13% to DeSantis here, folks. You still gave 13%. So you were angry, but it wasn't your top vote. That's all I can think about. So that brings us, there's so much more out here, but it's just to give you a little bit of an idea of the anatomy of the post-mortem of this 2022 midterms. And we're going to do the other ones too. So look, we're going to do ones for Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin. We're going to do them all. We're going to take a look at it. You'll be shocked, surprised, amazed. It'll sort of give you an idea as to why this red wave really was more of a red trickle. I mean, there's a lot of positives from there, but it certainly wasn't what we were expecting. That's for sure. But that's, a topic for another day. Anyways, like I said, you've been watching The Conservative American Perspective. I've been your host, Dr. Shake, and I'm leaving you with my final thought, folks, and that's when you're right, you're right, and when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time. Take care and stay safe.